What is up, everyone? Welcome back to our lawn, and today we are talking about dethatching. And so this is something that comes up with all the advice all of the time. Is the number one thing, you know, if you're new to lawn care, somebody comes into a Facebook group, they say, I'm new to lawn care, what should I do? The responses are largely the first step is to dethatch. And that's dumb. And I think it's generally because people don't have a good understanding of what thatch is, what it is that we're trying to accomplish when we dethatch, and how to identify that that's an issue. And so there have been a number of years where I do not dethatch my yard. This year was one of them, and I did that, and we can watch that while we talk about dethatching and while we give you a little bit more information on how you make the decision of whether or not this is something that you need to do. So like I said, this year I dethatched because, especially since I started with the robot mower last fall, mowing it all the time and mowing it a little bit shorter. Say hello to Gus, everyone. Especially the Kentucky bluegrass in the front got very, very thick and very, very spongy. And I talked about this in my previous video, but it was very difficult to find the soil layer through all of what is truly the thatch that my Kentucky bluegrass has built up. And now if we talk about that, here's a plug for my front yard. If we look at that, thatch isn't the dead material that sits up here for the lawnmower. Thatch is this right here. Especially since bluegrass is a rhizomatous growing turf grass, it's sending out rhizomes all through this area. You get this buildup right here, all of this stuff up top. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with that, that is where our organic material is coming from. That's why we don't need to add compost or other organic material to the lawn. That's why that's dumb. Because we have all the organics we could ever dream of or hope of when we're growing grass. You do not need to add that to the lawn. Hence why we're taking it away. But when you get that kind of buildup, it can start to cause problems with water and, more importantly, nutrient infiltration. So everything is going to get caught up in that thatch layer and it's not going to get down into the soil. It's going to start to develop places where diseases can more easily grow. As you can see, even here, especially down towards the bottom, there's evidence of disease pressure. See the discoloration of the leaves there, a little bit of melting out starting in my bluegrass in the front, leaf spot. And so really what we're going for, say hello to Gus again, really what we're going for is creating some space. Now I use the Verticut cartridge, the Scarify cartridge in the Sun Joe. I generally don't use the Dethatch cartridge. However, you can use either. You could also just rake really aggressively to get some of this out of there. We're really trying to get down at least to the soil layer and remove as much of the material as we can. As you can see from what you're watching, I pulled out an incredible amount of material. I went over it in both directions, making basically a checkerboard, get all that material out of there, have better access, better infiltration for air, water, and nutrients down into the soil. So again, if you're new to lawn care, dethatching is certainly not the first thing that you need to do. Oh Lord, he coming. But if you've been a couple years in, especially if you're somebody that's fertilizing heavy, there's a very good chance that you are going to have a little bit of thatch buildup and you are going to benefit from something like this. With the robot, with cutting shorter, this is probably going to be something that I'm going to have to do every year, unfortunately. I'd rather not, but especially in the front yard, it's probably going to be something I'm going to do annually at least once. With the backyard, hopefully I can still continue to hold off. It's been years since I've dethatched back here. I don't have any plan to do it this year because I simply don't have a thatch problem. I do not need to do it. So again, quick video, hopefully some nice little satisfying visuals, getting all that material out of the front yard, getting it vacuumed up, a little bit of information on spring dethatching and how that benefits you, how to make the decision, what is it actually doing, accomplishing, and removing for you. Leave a comment with any questions you might have, like the video if it was helpful, subscribe to the channel as we're about to get into the beginner lawn care guide and we're about to get into doing stuff back on the putting green again this year. So as always, subscribe to the channel if you want to follow along to that. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Gus, no. Say hello to Gus, everyone. No. Gus, no. If you're new to lawn care, dethatching is certainly not the first thing that you need to do. Oh Lord, he coming.